Alright, so let's start with pitch. What is pitch? Pitch is simply how high or low a sound is. So let's say you have a faster vibration compared to a slower vibration. The faster vibration is going to give you a higher pitch versus a slower vibration. But this is physics and we don't really care about that. What we need to know is that we have a set number of note names in music that label pitches. What are these note names? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So, these are the note names that help us label pitches. One thing you should also know is that pitch does not equal volume. It simply is how high or low a sound is. So, we have these 7 notes. So after this G, you might be saying, wouldn't we go to an H? No. We actually start again from an A. So we repeat to this A. So this is the first note we played, and the last note. So the distance between these two notes is called an octave. So what is an octave? An octave is when a note repeats at a higher or a lower pitch. It's still the same note, it just has a higher or a lower pitch. For example, if I play this A, and I want to play an octave higher, I'll play it up here. And if I want to play an octave lower, I'll play it down here. It's still the same note, and we'll still write it as A, but it has a higher pitch, a lower pitch, or lower pitch, basically. So, why do we need to know this? Every single note has an octave. They each have their own octaves. So if I start at C, I could go an octave up or down. So if I start at the C, octave down would be here, octave down would be here, and octave up would be here. Basically, the vibration speed goes up, but we really care about that. We just want to know that it's still the same note, just at a higher pitch. If you want to know why it's called an octave, it's because it's the 8th note up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th note is an A. So we basically repeat. So if we wrote it like this is how pianos basically are arranged. We would not write A here. We would write C, because we would repeat it. So even if we started at D, we would end this sequence at D. So basically, we want to go until we repeat our first note to reach the octave. Let's talk about whole steps and half steps. What are whole steps and half steps? These can also be referred to as semitones and whole tones. So what are these? Basically, the semitone is the distance between two notes. What do I mean by that? If we look at the piano here, we have a multitude of different keys which have a set distance between each other. Let's say if I go from here, this C to this G, that'd be 7 semitones up because it is 7 notes up. But let's just stick with a basic. From C to the C sharp, don't worry if you don't know what a C sharp is, we'll get to that in a second. It is a semitone because it's simply moving 1 note up on the keyboard. It moves to the very next key without skipping a key. But if I were to go to the D, this is a whole step because we are skipping the note in between. That's C sharp. We're going straight to the D. Now, some notes are weird. I'm going to write down the notes that we have. We have an A, a B, C, D, E, F, G. I'm going to write down the distance. Okay, no, let me do it like this. Green will represent a whole step, and blue will represent a half step. As you can see, we have 2 sets of notes that move by half steps instead of whole steps. B and C and E and F. Why is that? So if we look at the key E, there is no note in between E and F, even though they're both white keys, and you would expect it to be a whole step. There is no key in between these 2 notes, so that is a half step. Same thing with B and C. There is no notes in between them. So that would be considered a half step. But if I were to go from E to this F sharp, that would be a whole step because it is 2 half steps. A whole step is basically 2 half steps. C to D is 2 half steps. 1, 2. C, 1, 2. That's 2 half steps. E, F sharp, that's 2 half steps because we have to go up by 2 notes. You can also think of it as a skip. So basically, if we're going from C to D, we're skipping the note in between. From D to E, we're skipping this note in between. From E to F, we're not skipping a note. So that's a half step. Now, what are these notes in between, these half steps? If we write down the notes again, I'm going to write it down the way it is laid out on the piano. Okay, so we have 2 types of notes. We have naturals and accidentals. Think of your naturals as your white keys. For the accidentals, there are 2 types. There are sharps, which are represented by this symbol. I'm pretty sure it's a pound, but I think of it as a hashtag. Or a flat, which is represented by this symbol. It looks like a lowercase b. So now, between these 2 notes, we have an accidental because there's a whole step between these notes. So the accidental that we have here is a C sharp. But this C sharp can also be written as a D flat. Why is that? It's the same note, but it can have 2 different names. If we move up 1 half step, we have a sharp. But if we move down 1 half step, we have a flat. Think of it as a sharp point up or like a flat rounded bottom. So if we have a sharp, we're going to move up 1 note. But let's say we have a C. If we want to play the sharp of the C, we'll just go up 1 note, 1 half step. But let's say we have a D and we want to go down 1 note. It's the same note as a C sharp. It's just going down 1. So we would label that a flat. But if I wanted to play a D sharp, I would go up 1 half step. If I wanted to play an E flat, I'd go down from the E. It's the same note though as a D flat, as a D sharp. So I'm actually just going to fill this in so you guys can kind of see what I mean. There are 2 notes here that don't have accidentals. We from B to C and from E to F because there is no half step in between these. This already is a half step. So there's no notes in between these. So there's no accidentals between E and F or B and C. So now if we're looking at the C and D, we have 2 accidental. We have 1 accidental between them that can be represented in 2 ways. So remember that sharp is up a half step and flat is down a half step. They are the same sound, just a different name. So why are they different names? Why can't they all be the same names? Because different scales have different spellings of the key. So basically, different scales write the keys differently depending on how many sharps or flats are in the scale. You don't have to worry about this right now because this will be for a future video, but you have to keep that in mind that different scales will have different sounds. That different scales will have different labels for their accidentals. So one scale can have a C sharp as a note, and one scale will label that C sharp as a D flat. A scale will never really have sharps and flats. It either will be all flat notes or all sharp notes that are labeled. So let's say we're in E flat minor. The notes will be E, F, G flat, A flat, B flat. Actually, they would label this C flat. So why would they label this C flat if C flat isn't a thing? C flat technically is a thing, but it's just a B. The only reason why it's being labeled as a C flat is because you never really want to reuse 2 notes. So since we have the B flat already, we don't want to say B. So we just labeled it as a C flat, which is technically just a C. For example, an E sharp is just an F. So a C flat is just a B, and a B sharp would just be a C. If that's confusing, don't worry, it's not. Okay, so here are some practice questions. Don't mind that my handwriting is a little bit crooked. The first question is, what is a half step below G? So if this is our G, what is a note that's directly below it, a half step below it, one key below it? It is a G flat or an F sharp. You can label it either way. The only time where it matters if you use a G flat or an F sharp is depending on your scale, but we'll get into that next video. Next, what is a whole step above C if this is our C? I don't know why my piano sounds like that. It's a little bit like wiggly. What is a whole step above this note? A whole step, remember, is 2 notes above, 2 keys above. It is a D. Okay. What note is the same as an A sharp? This is an A sharp. It is a B flat because it's the same note, just different writing. And the last but not least, what is a half step above E? What note is a half step above E? No skips. It is F. One thing that really confused me when I first started learning music theory was counting the wholes and half steps. Because I would thought that you would count the first note as a step. You don't count the first note as a step. The first note you count as a step. So let's say we need to go a half step up is a C sharp. So the C doesn't count in it. So let's say we want to go 4 steps up. Four semitones up. Because remember, a semitone is a half step. We want to go 4 semitones up. It wouldn't be F because we're not. It wouldn't be D sharp because we're not starting at the C. We don't count the C as a semitone. It would be an E because we're going from C to C sharp to D sharp to E. So this note does not count as a semitone. It's only the note above it or below it that will count as a semitone. So that's it for this video. So this is the first video of the series. Sorry if some things sound confusing. Trust me, the videos will get better. This is just my first time recording in this content style. But I hope you guys understood it. And if you have any questions at all, leave a comment down below. I'll be gladly to answer anything that may have confused you guys. Because it really is not that difficult. But it is definitely tricky, especially these enharmonic relationships. So let me know, and thank you for watching.